I think we're on, yeah.
Wasn't these people, was it?
There was a plan on
You said
it. When we went here in Portage,
so I have all
it was an approved site, approved.
Call this council meeting to order at 6 p.m. I need a motion for adoption of minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at Stride Place on Monday, November 14th, 2017 be adopted as circulated, and that the minutes of the organizational meeting held at Stride Place on Monday, November 14th, 2017 be adopted with the following revision. 6P, Victoria Espy has been replaced with Vienna Lopez on the Parks Committee.
Okay, I need a mover for that motion. Moved by Councillor Dreger, seconded by Councillor Espy. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no delegations this evening. We'll open the public hearing for variation PC 70-17. This is for Zink Johnson at 65 8th Street Northwest. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? Did you want to speak to it or just answer questions?
I'll just answer questions.
Okay, and your name, sir?
Jamie Zink.
Did council have any questions for Mr. Zink? Okay, I need a motion to close the public hearing for variation.
Resolved that the public hearing for variation PC 70-17 Zink Johnson at the property known as 65 8th Street Northwest now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Dreger and second by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried.
So Jamie Zink is applying for a variation order to allow for the front yard requirement to be reduced to allow for a construction of a front deck. A site visit to the area revealed that of the 9 houses on the west side of this block, one is as close as approximately 3.35 meters, while the remainder range from approximately 3.96 meters up to 8.23 meters. The 9 houses on the east side of this block range from approximately 3.66 meters to 6.7 meters. This building is in a residential single-family zone, and the application has been circulated to various city departments with no concerns. Public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. It is the recommendation, and I so move, that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Jamie Zink to vary the front yard requirement of 7.5 meters to be reduced to 2.7 meters at the property known as 65 8th Street Northwest, which is legally described as lots 39, 40, Block 2, Plan 100, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Dreger and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We'll open the hearing for variation PC 74-17. This is for Dow Harkness, RTC. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? Did you want to speak or just answer questions?
I can just answer questions.
Okay, and your name for the record, sir?
Jeff Dow.
Okay, thank you. Did council have any questions for Mr. Dow? Okay.
Resolved that the public hearing for variation 74-17 Dow Harkness, 43 Wilkinson Crescent, now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Dreger and seconded by Councillor Draycott. All those in favor? And that's carried.
The applicant in this case is applying for a variation order to allow an assembly process as a home occupation. Jeff Dow is applying for a variation order to allow an assembly process as a home occupation where the applicant would like to start up an embroidery business with no retail sales out of this location. The applicant will be living at this location and working on the embroidery business. Again, this building is in a residential single-family zone. The application has been circulated to various city departments with no concerns, and public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. It is the recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Jeff Dow to allow an assembly process as a home occupation at the property known as 43 Wilkinson Crescent, which is legally described as Lot 39, Plan 1143, Parish of Portage la Prairie, with the following conditions. Number 1, he lives at the residence. Number 2, no retail sales out of residence. And number 3, he obtains a business license from the City of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Dreger and seconded by Councillor Fraze. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Open the public hearing for bylaw 17-8663. This is zoning bylaw amendment, and second and third reading. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? Okay.
Resolved that the public hearing for bylaw 17-8663 to amend zoning bylaw 10-8492 now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Dreger and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried.
This is an application to rezone the property from limited agriculture to residential multifamily. And I trust that Council has read the background there and all the regulations that apply to this. The application has been circulated to various city departments with no concerns being expressed. The application has also been advertised in the Daily Graphic for 2 consecutive weeks, circulated to the province, and public notices have been sent to all property owners of properties within a 100-meter radius of the proposed development as per Section 168 of the Planning Act. First reading was given on October 10th, 2017 to commence this process. And it is the recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the application to rezone the land legally described as Portion B, Plan 35396, Parish of Portage la Prairie, from AL, Limited Agriculture, to R3, Residential Multifamily, and that bylaw number 17-8663 be read a second time.
Moved by Councillor Dreger and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that bylaw number 17-8663 be read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed.
Moved by Councillor Dreger and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried. Move into committee, Finance, Legislative, and Property Committees. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you. We have a short-term borrowing bylaw here to approve. I do believe this was first read and considered at the November 14th meeting. So as you know, we just have to have that short-term bylaw in place. It's never been used, and we do have to do it just for housekeeping issues, so I'm not going to go through that. It is a recommendation of your committee, and I so move that bylaw number 17-8664 to set up a line of credit with the city's financial institution for 2017 be given a second reading.
Moved by
2018, excuse me.
Sorry, 2018. There is a typo in the bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Dreger. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And finally, that bylaw 17-8664 be given the third reading, finally passed, signed, and sealed.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Dreger. All those in favor? And that's carried.
As council knows, we do set up a calendar and an idea of when all of our council meetings are, and so that process sometimes has changes made to it, and I know this has been a bit of a moving target, but we do set the dates, and then we obviously publicize those dates. We do take into consideration things like FCM, the Annual Association of Manitoba Municipalities Convention, AMM, and then we do have the summer recess and sometimes a condensed winter schedule with regards to all the conventions that are going on, but as you can see, they are all outlined there as well. So it is the recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the council meeting dates for the year 2018 as follows, and I will not read them out as you can see them there.
Okay, moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Draycott?
Just a clarification question. I believe last year when we approved this that there were the off-site dates already noted. Are we planning any off-site dates this year?
Right now it's one, and there's going to be some budget talks. There may be other dates set during the budget process. Any other questions?
It is not uncommon that we have to amend these dates and look at these throughout the year, but we do put them out there at the start with our best efforts put forward.
Any further questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Next item is the redirection of some existing legacy funds, and that is with Portage and Area Beautification Initiative, known as PABI. And so we've had a request to consider, and that's from the Portage Public Art Program. And obviously they need the consent, and we need the consent of the original PABI members to redirect $127,000 that's being held in a reserve for beautification legacy. So we've got some consideration here to be made. So both organizations are known to council, and so this is a way of accessing some funds that are currently in a reserve and not currently being used. So when this group was dissolved, and it was dissolved after much work was done in 2008, they entrusted the city with the remaining funds to implement their final projects as per the attached agreement. And again, that's back in 2008. And a large portion of that money was spent as intended, with a total of approximately 127 being held in a reserve for the legacy. So obviously members of the Portage Public Art Program are looking to maybe access some of those funds, and they have been in discussions with some of those existing members for consent to have those funds redirected to public art. And we've seen some of the great work that the public art group has done in our community. And they've had some positive discussions. So there was a consensus built, and now they've come to us to basically ratify that. And that is with $100,000 to the Portage Public Art Program with conditions attached. And that is a maximum of $25,000 to be spent in any calendar year. And $17,000 stays with the City of Portage Prairie for tree planting, and $10,000 to the CP station for landscaping, greenery, and maintenance. So as there is a formal agreement, that is why we're now entertaining this. So it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the disbursement of $127,000 being held in special admin reserves for the beautification legacy, subject to written support from the RM Council and the Chamber of Commerce as follows. Number one, as I mentioned, $100,000 to the Portage Public Art Program. Number two, $17,000 stays with the City of Portage la Prairie for tree planting. And three, that $10,000 to the CP station for landscaping, greenery, and maintenance of that greenery.
Okay, moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Sorry.
Councillor Draycott?
Your Worship, if I could recuse myself, I have a conflict of interest in the following item on council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item on my docket is the finalize the negotiations with the International Association of Firefighters, and so that process has been going on for the last number of months, and an agreement was struck, and so this council needs to ratify again that agreement. So just as a summary here, the collective agreement will expire this December, at the end of December, and so the last agreement did expire, and then negotiations and eventual arbitration did take place. So we're most definitely in a more positive relationship, I would say, at this point in time, because an agreement has already been determined. So we did provide administration with some parameters to work within, and we were successful in maintaining those parameters. So this is a contract for 2018 through to 2020. And the summary of that is right there. So the increase of payment of the group and life premium to 100% employer paid, and then wage increases for 2% in pay period 1 and 1.5 in period number 14. So you can see how it's laid out, those increases. We do have an attached memorandum of settlements of all changes, and so that's obviously there for council to review. So again, I view this as ratification of the initiative that we put forth for administration to negotiate with the union. So it is a recommendation of your committee, and I move that the mayor and the city manager be authorized to sign a collective agreement with IAFF Local 1079.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Would you be able to let Councillor Draycott know she can come back in?
And the final item in my committee report is to consider the offer of Ian Elgert to purchase city-owned property adjacent to his recently purchased property at 489 Old Bridge Road. And I know this has been an item that council has discussed as well previously, and now is for our approval here in formal council. So Mr. Elgert would like to purchase city-owned property adjacent to his. He has offered purchase price land for the assessed value of $68,200, and you can see the property description there. He'd like to acquire this property as green space and develop some hiking and bicycle trails for his use and potentially, I guess, someone else's use in the future. It could be developed into 2 or 3 residential lots in a similar fashion to the rest of the neighborhood, and obviously he would be required to adhere to any city guidelines and uphold the land use requirements for that area. We did circulate this request as per our process, and we did hear back from several departments and with comments. And so finance, operations, planning district are the 3 that came back. It should be noted also this property is still under the old property registry system and requires the final filing of a real property application to bring the land into the new system under the Real Property Act. So the maps are attached, and you can see where that property is located. And as like I have pointed out, council has had discussion on this item. So it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the council here at Portage la Prairie approve the sale of 6.5 acres of land legally described in Title D54103 and roll number 386800 as Parish Lot 101, all that portion beginning at point in W boundary of said parish lot, distant S889.6F from northwest corner said lot, thence S77 degrees of 8 minutes, E601F, thence and 84 degrees, 54 minutes, E529.6F, thence 110 degrees, 16 minutes, east 270F, more or less, to the northerly margin of the Assiniboine River, thence west following said margin, upstream to its intersection with first mentioned west boundary, said parish lot, thence north along said westerly limit to point of beginning. 2. Ian Elgert, upon the property registry's acceptance of the city's real property application for the purchase price of $68,200 plus $450 in tax sale costs for a total of $68,650 plus all costs related to the sale.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any questions or comments for Mr. Buds on that motion? Councillor Dreger?
I'm just wondering, were any of the neighbors interested in that portion of land at all? Behind their buildings? Like does this section of land run just on the back of Mr. Elgert's land, or there's 2 other parcels there? He doesn't own those parcels, right?
To my understanding, no.
Okay. Was there any interest from his neighbors at all? I mean, I imagine that they were given the option.
That I do not have an answer for.
Okay.
There is other neighbors along there. I do not know if they were consulted or not.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Although that does conclude my report, that is not the end of hearing from me as we go further through council.
Okay, good to know. Thank you, Councillor Buds. City Planning Economic Development, Councillor Dreger, please.
This committee has nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Community Service Committee, Councillor Fraze, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Community Service Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Councillor Appa, you had some news from the high school. You've got an event coming up?
Yeah, the Breakfast for Breakfast fundraiser. The Breakfast for Breakfast fundraiser is being held this coming Wednesday. It starts at 7:30 and it ends at 9, and all proceeds go to the breakfast programs of Portage la Prairie. So if anyone would like to or has time to attend, it'd be fantastic.
Okay, so that's open to everybody, 7:30. Great breakfast, I hear. Thank you. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Wall.
The Waterworks Committee has nothing to report this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Draycott, Transportation Committee, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing to report from the Transportation Committee this evening.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Public Safety Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. We have no deferred business. We do have an item of new business, and I'll call upon Councillor Buds again, please.
Thank you. It's funny, the way the report is provided, it only has one alternative, and that is to appoint Mr. Nathan Pito as the city manager. So obviously Mr. Pito has started here today, December the 11th, as our city manager at the salary step 3 of city manager salary scale, and at the completion of his probation he will be moved to step 4. So although this is the formal, I'm sure council joins me in welcoming Nathan officially to role of city manager here, and we look forward to working with you in the future. So it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the mayor and council appoint Nathan Pito as a city manager effective December 11th, 2017.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any comments or questions on the motion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? And that's unanimous. Congratulations and welcome aboard. We have some new business, closure bylaw, road closure bylaw 178665. This is for first reading, and Councillor Buds, this is finance.
Thank you. This actually relates to a piece of land that we had recently sold, and so just some analysis here. Back in August, meeting council passed a resolution approving the amendment of resolution 217/0116, originally passed in June. And you can see that we read, I'm not going to read that, but we did resolve that we were selling an identified piece of land along 18th Street. And the reason we did that was the developer was proposing to invest a considerable amount of money to develop additional residential lots there. And so Section 287 of the Municipal Act states that municipalities are responsible for the direction, control, and management of roads. And we knew at that time that this was going to be required. And so it is a process. This is part of that. And now that the plan of road closing has been prepared, the first step is to give the road closing bylaw first reading, and that's what we're doing here tonight. So when we sell a public lane, the city's process is to approach the adjacent property owners to ensure there's no issues with closing and selling the roadway, and to provide the opportunity for adjacent landowners to offer to purchase a portion of that lane. In this scenario, the process is not applicable, as adjacent property owners are the purchaser and the seller, so not required. And again, you can see that the sketch has been attached. So it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that bylaw number 17-8665, being a bylaw to close and sell a portion of 18th Street Northwest, as outlined on the attached sketch, to the Portage la Prairie Condominium Corporation number 7 for the purchase price of $21,780.54 plus all costs associated with the closing, including utility easements, and subject to ministerial approval, be given first reading and therefore then advertised.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Councillor Buds, this one is yours also.
I don't believe
I think this
so.
one's Councillor Dreger's. I get one break.
Sorry, you're right. Councillor Dreger.
We have received an application from the Manitoba Housing Corporation for an extension to their original variation order, which was passed in February of 2017, and they require an additional 12 months to complete the work that they wish to do. And as we can see by the Planning Act Section 101, this is allowed for, and so the recommendation by this committee is that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the request of the Manitoba Housing to extend the original variation order PC 3-17 at the properties on 117 Cochrane Street, which are legally described as Lot 26, Plan 935, Parish of Portage la Prairie. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Dreger and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Now, Councillor Buds, the next item is yours.
Yes, basically we need a operating budget established for January 1st, and so we know that we're well underway with our actual finalized budget, but in the interim we do have to have something prepared and approved. And so the proposed interim budget, which will take effect January the 1st, because the finalized one won't be done, provides funding for city operations until such time, again, that that final budget is approved. It is anticipated, though, that we will have that finalized and approved by February. So this is just a stopgap measure, and we do it every year. I won't go through every category, but from our general side, so there's two sides, general operating fund and utility operating fund. These, again, operating budgets, not capital budgets, for a total expenditure on the general side of $4.8 million approximately, and $7 million on the utility side. So again, housekeeping in nature, but it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the 2018 interim general operating fund budget of $4,841,650 and the 2018 interim utility operating fund budget of $2,392,140 be approved as presented.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. And finally, Councillor Buds, the Lesby Building Reserve.
Yes, this is a reserve that we have held for quite some time, and for those councillors that know, we do contribute to this reserve annually, and so we would be anticipating to do so again. But we've had a request from the group to deal with some expenditures in 2017 yet. And so those total $6,720.68. And so we would normally have dealt with this in the new year, but again, they want these expenses paid for. These are not monies that we have budgeted for in our operating fund, and I can tell you that we are looking positively in terms of our general operating fund, but we've decided to move council in the direction of removing these from the funds in reserve, because that's really where those funds should be coming from, because it is improvement to the Gillespie Centre in that nature. You can see heat equipment in the Portage and District Arts Centre, a compressor unit for the Gillespie area, and automatic and accessible doors. So it's all building related, and that's what this resolution is about. So it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage Prairie approve the expenses of $6,720.68 to be expensed to the Gillespie Centre Building Reserve.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We have no old business, so we will adjourn council at 6:29 p.m. and we're going to move right into committee. And if you haven't been here before, I'd just like to remind you that committee is open to the media and it's open to the public, and you're welcome to stay for committee. And we'll open committee at 6:29 p.m. First up is Finance Legislative Property Committees. Councillor Buds.
Nothing to mention in our committee report. There There's a couple things, I think, from that last council meeting that will get second reading, if I recall, but other than that, nothing additionally to contribute at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Butts. City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Dreger, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of things. The first being the building reports from the Planning District for October of 2017. This continues to be a good news item in Council as those permits are increasing, showing a lot of progress in our city at this time. A lot of interest in building. Is there any questions regarding those reports? If not, the second thing I'd just like to mention is this Hey Portage magazine that is on in front of you this evening. It smells new, and I just flipped through it, and it looks like a really positive magazine again, and I look forward to reading it, reading all about the great businesses in Portage that are being featured in here. I encourage you all to read it, and the public to pick up their copy in a number of places where they're being distributed. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor Dreger. Community Services Committee, Councillor Fraze, please.
Thank you, Worship. Excuse me. Nothing on the agenda.
Thank you. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Wall.
Yes, Your Worship. There's a fairly lengthy report here concerning construction of a pretreatment low-rate anaerobic reactor at the Water Pollution Control Facility, as well as a new wastewater pumping station to be located at Poplar Bluff Industrial Park, and the installation of a new treated water supply pump at the water treatment plant, reservoir, and pump station. The low-rate anaerobic reactor was already a part of the overall upgrade to the facility for nutrient removal. However, in order to meet the March 2019 production schedule for Roquette, it's necessary to advance this portion of the project to be able to accept and treat their wastewater along with the wastewater from McCain and Nutropy. The construction of the pre-treatment system as well as the lift station and all accessory work is considered phase 1 of the wastewater facility upgrade. There are a couple of other sections of this, and I'll leave it to councillors to read for themselves, but the City of Portage la Prairie has received confirmation of $28,749,000 in federal and provincial funding for this project through the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund. A letter confirming the funding has been received from Manitoba Strategic Infrastructure Secretariat, and a formal agreement will be sent to the City of Portage la Prairie for signatures in the next 2 weeks. This amount is sufficient to cover all estimated construction and engineering costs for phase 1 of the wastewater facility upgrades.
And that concludes your reports, Councillor Wall. Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing officially in committee. However, I would like to extend a congratulations to the Rotary Club on their Santa Parade of Lights this past Friday, even though they did start from a different location than what they're used to, and we had a couple more road closures. It was a really great parade, lots of businesses and organizations taking part in it, and so it was really nice. Even though it was a little bit chilly, it was nice to see all of those floats going down Saskatchewan Avenue. So congratulations to the Chamber and the Rotary Club for putting that on for us.
Thank you, Councillor Draycott. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Public Safety Committee has nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Just before we adjourn, we'll have question periods. So if you haven't been here before, this is a chance for folks in the gallery to come up and ask a question of council, and we will endeavor to do our best to answer it for you. So, evening, Mr. Knott.
Evening, Mayor Ferris, councillors. You're not getting off easy. I got several questions. If I had my glasses, I'd be able to see it with this. Right. What is council's principle if an application to the sale of marijuana is made in the town? What is council's position?
Okay. Council's position right now is that we will allow the retailing of cannabis in our community with all applicable zoning applied and those type of things.
Thank you. I read in the handout that we came around in the city information today that this council meeting can be seen live on YouTube. If that's correct, would council consider, or the IT people consider, setting up a system whereby interested parties, and I'm talking especially about young people, can look at council meetings and send in questions, send in their confirmation, their information, their comments, and get some dialogue going. One of the principles that council has is to reach out to the community and have the community reach back. That's an ideal way to do that. Is council considering that?
Well, my understanding is that people of all ages can now view council meetings live, and that's a very good suggestion. The second part is very good, Mr. Knott, and we're actually doing that outreach through our youth counselor. She's got a number of activities planned for the community and for young people in the community that will create opportunities for interaction between members of council and our young population in Portage. Did that capture the question or answer it?
Unfortunately, no, Mr. Mayor Ferris. I'm asking whether there can be live response from council during council meetings for people who are viewing council meeting proceedings on YouTube. I said that it might be interest to young people who might be watching YouTube more than old people, but that's an assumption on my part which may be incorrect. I don't know. I don't know who would be watching, but if we're watching it live and it's available live, can an interactive ability be set up between council, the video itself, and people who are watching it?
Okay, now I understand the question. I'm told that our technical people are looking at it. It's been discussed. So I guess the answer would be a firm perhaps. Maybe in the future.
Any timeline?
No timeline at this time.
My next question is, knowing what the provincial government is doing in terms of, and most places across Canada are doing, for not advertising in newspapers anymore, the newspapers are dying, or lack of advertising, what is council's position on advertising in local newspapers for information by council? Do you have a policy at all in that?
Yeah, there's a number of regulations, and for example, I'll ask Mr. Brooks to comment on this. I know there's a number of times we're required to advertise in local papers. Now, if the province is changing, I'm guessing that will change for the planning district somewhat?
As it stands right now, the Planning Act dictates that we have to advertise. We have a choice. We can advertise in the paper, we can post them. We have chosen to advertise. If this province changes it and changes the Planning Act, then I guess at that point in time we would change ours too. I can't speak on behalf of the rest of the city.
Okay. We advertise when we're required to advertise right now, and obviously that could be evolving if the province is changing.
My last question, Mr. Mayor. The Portage Heritage Advisory Committee has been allocated funds. As an advisory committee, on what would it spend money?
Would you be able to give us some examples? Yeah, I don't think they spent most of it last year, did they? Okay. Okay. There is some cost to, when they designate a building as heritage, there's some cost to that, so it covers that. Oh, okay. And the cost of producing heritage books from the city.
Thank you.
Were there any further questions? Well, if there are no further questions, then committee is adjourned at 6:39 p.m. Thank you for coming out, everybody.
I know.
Everybody else. Go on.